Greetings, all my friends. It's not a vlog. I'm sorry, it's not a vlog. I've given up. I've lost the will to live. But there's a very big but. I have decided to do a new feature that I'm going to call It's Not True, which is basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some famous historical events. For example, as you've probably read on the title up there, up there, that this one is going to be about how Hitler came to power, and I'm going to kind of dispel some of the things that you think are true, but are in fact not true. For example, Hitler didn't have a hamster. A lot of you didn't think that, but I know someone who did, and if they know who they are, you should be ashamed of yourself. Coincidentally, that person also thought that, well, they didn't know who Bin Laden was, so I mean, that's said, really. Moving on to the main feature. So yeah, Hitler was born in Austria in 1890-something. Bad start. But yeah, he joined the German army to escape, irony, to escape being conscripted for the Austrian army. He joined the German army. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but he did. And they say, now this is a rumour that I am going to dispel, he wrote in his book, so this is the first not true, hang on, I'm going to add an intro. Okay, so it was said in Mein Kampf that he was crying on the day the war ended. This is in fact a lie, misreported. Now, a lot of you are going to say, but how do you know? They weren't watching him 24/7. The truth of the matter is that chlorine gas poisoning causes sometimes inflammation on the human skin. And Hitler had a very interesting case. His eyes were swollen completely. So the doctors knew he could not cry. There was no crying whatsoever. True. It's true. I'm sorry. Laugh at me all you want. It's a fact. It's a solid, cold, hard fact. I'm going to move on to the next one now. So after that, he went back to Berlin, very briefly. Then he went to Munich, again, very briefly, and was begging on the streets. This is where he developed his hatred of the Jews. Now, this was kind of developed due to the fact that he was sitting on the street asking for money, because after the German army was disbanded in 1918, a lot of the German soldiers didn't have a job, begging on the streets, that kind of stuff. Hitler was lucky, let's be honest, or in our case, unlucky. So yeah, he did that, and a lot of rich Jewish families wouldn't give him money, and so he developed hatred of them. He didn't think they were German. Enough said. I'm not going to start grudging against the Jews. This is Hitler's. But here is the second fact. Hitler was an artist, right? And he didn't get into Munich, art school, which is true. But, and this is another fact, people say that he gave up. He didn't. He tried another time to get into the same art college and was kicked out again. Well, not kicked out, he never got in. So there, another fact that you learn, majigger. So after that, he was recruited by the German government to spy on parties such as the up-and-coming Nazi Party, which it wasn't known as then. It had some stupid German name. But then he changed it and made it the Nazi Party because he joined them. He kind of went from spying on them and joined them. I mean, then he changed it all, kicked a lot of the members out, became leader, made himself leader. I mean, that's a bit vain, really. But easily, the coolest part about this is that he tried to take power. Now, this was known as the Munich Putsch. He gathered his supporters together, armed them up, and they marched on Munich. Now, the irony is, people say that because they took the firing pins out the guns, the Munich Putsch was a failure, and they were all arrested. Not true, because reports have been said... Oh, hang on! Intro! Reports have been said that many of them were carrying handheld revolvers and were throwing rocks, and there were 17 casualties in a brief gunfire that happened. So in fact, the Munich Putsch was a very violent uprising, and I'm going to stop moving my hand like this. So yeah, after that, he was put in prison for 8 months. Very lengthy prison sentence. That was when he wrote Mein Kampf, the book that told everyone, biggest selling book in Germany of all time. That is true, but that's not a relevant fact to Hitler's rise to power. So yeah, he did that, He wrote Mein Kampf. Now this is him complaining about how the Jews have come to power and his life and his miserable days. Probably the worst piece of literature most people have ever read, unless you're Nick Griffin, or anyone that knows or supports Nick Griffin. Just saying. So anyway, Mein Kampf, that was written so that he could express his hatred of the Jews, and then he was let out. Hindenburg then kind of promoted him again, because he didn't go to prison for the Munich Putsch. He was helpful to him, but he didn't go to prison because he was a great general that won many battles in a lost war. So, yeah, then the Nazi Party was reformed, many new members joined, such as Ernst Röhm, head of the SA, the useful idiots, as my history teacher calls them. And, yeah, so, he did that with some awesomeness. Then, this is what happened the next thing. He decided that he needed to change his attitude. So instead of deciding to take Germany by force, which he could never do, because the SA were just a bunch of drunken louts, he decided to win over the German people. And do you know what happened? Amazingly, well, within 10 years, I will admit, because he came out and it wasn't really going up to speed. They were getting more popular, but then Germany started becoming profitable again, especially after the Dawes Agreement. And nobody wanted, because Germany was prosperous, because we were giving the money, the Americans were giving the money, and France weren't taking their money, which is still a good factor. So yeah, they were using the Rhineland, the Saar was still producing their 15% per annum, which was useful for German trade. So the Nazi Party were offering things like, well, this is some German for you, so I won't let you babel this is Arbeit, Freiheit and Brot. That is German for work, bread and freedom, which were, at those times, well, during the 1918 period, and just after that, in the Treaty of Versailles era, that would have been very nice, not being harassed by the French and the English in the Rhineland, not being taxed heavily because they lost a war that wasn't really their choice. So yeah, but then Germany becomes kind of, oh, well, we were probably a bit harsh on them. Like the child you've scolded and then you regret. That's what happened. And the Germans were given all these rights and all this money that they were supposed to pay back so they could get back on their feet. And that's when it all went horribly wrong. Now, without going into too much detail, this is what happened. That's 4 words to sum up what went horribly wrong. The Wall Street crash. 4. I can count. The Wall Street crash happened in America, and I did promise I'm not going to go into detail with this, but yeah, screw that. Basically, the principle is that once the Americans have made all these new things like fridges and cars, and people have never seen these before, so they're going to go and buy one. But once they've got one, they're not going to get another one, are they? I mean, you don't buy a car and say, this is so good, I'm going to get another one, unless you're Alan Sugar, or someone who knows Alan Sugar. Just saying. But the point still stands that if you've got something like that, you won't want another one. And this is what happened with the Americans. Their projected profit suddenly just stopped because everyone had one of these. And that's what happened in Wall Street. Then all their interest went down, and suddenly they're demanding the money back off of Germany. Which is a bit unfair, but to be honest, the Germans did have it coming. So it was all going rather horribly until Hitler comes along. And suddenly, from 1931 onwards, to 1933 when he came to power, he's popular because he's offering things that the Germans no longer have: bread, work, and freedom. And the people, well, there was a very famous quote from some random worker to his wife. She was wearing the Nazi badge, and she said, "Oh, you're not going to support those bully boys, are you?" And she says, "What have we to lose?" And at that time, it was very apt because the Germans, once again, were in the poo. Without going into too much detail, they really were. And then, so 1933 comes to power, and within 6 years, we're at war again. So yeah, but now you know why Hitler came to power. And I also explained to you some things you thought are true, but they're not. Alright. But yeah, so the point stands, and if you like it, tell me, so I can make another one. And if you want to suggest what I should make next, again, suggest, comment, subscribe, and have a nice day. Bam.